This story begins from early morning to evening. A boy demonstrates his unwavering commitment. At 7 a.m. he runs 10 kilometers in the rain, each step reflecting his dedication. By 12 p.m. noon, he's intensely focused on delivering 500 precise head strikes using kendo. At 5 p.m. he's in the gym pushing through 10 sets of bench presses, squats and deadlifts. His body screams in pain, but he pushes on, driven by an unyielding determination as he is being yelled at by the buffed trainer beside him. After enduring this grueling 14-day routine, the guy decides to resign from his job. He marches into his boss's office and slams his resignation letter on the desk, causing whatever hair his boss has to fall. As he continues to work out in the gym, he then reflects on a question someone once asked him if he had suddenly gone crazy. He answers in his head that perhaps it would have been better if he had gone mad. But then his eyes reflected something bright. A message ominously appears, telling him that the door to the end of days is opening soon. The message is clear. It wanted him to prepare for the end with a recommended quest of strength and cardio exercises while also learning kendo. There were also 5 seconds left until the end of the day. Seeing this, he thinks the world is ending soon. After the countdown ominously ticks down from 5 seconds to 0, filling him with adrenaline and dreading as the final moments approach. 15 days ago, cell phones that were held in everyone's hands across Gyeongno-gu blared a critical disaster message, giving off an alert warning that monsters were near Inwon Mountain, urging immediate evacuation for citizens that were nearby. Panic ensued as people tried to comprehend the chaos. A student thinking it might be a prank is startled by another alert about monsters near Seorik Mountain, threatening Seoul with further notifications that reveal monsters appearing in Incheon at Simgok Park. The escalating alerts cause widespread alarm and confusion, but it's as if that was not enough. Another notification pops up with an even more chilling title, showing monsters have appeared. Not a joke. It includes a live video by a streamer named Sakurella. A man with blonde hair was hiding in fear behind a tree as he spotted a giant figure near him. His voice trembles as he tells his viewers that a monster has really appeared. The stream chat is filled with comments, some not believing it, others mocking the streamer. Still hiding behind the tree, the streamer excitedly questions his audience, wondering if he should go a little closer since he came all the way there. Laughter erupts in the comments, with some suggesting he play red light green light with the creature. Another joke is that this is the reason why men die faster. Amid the banter, someone points out that the monster is moving right now. The comment section suddenly fills with panic warnings, shouting at the streamer that the monster was behind him. But the guy still didn't believe his chat, thinking that they were just messing with him. He insists that he was looking at the monster and that it wasn't moving, but his doubt is shattered as the monster growls from right behind him. A loud shout echoes through the stream, sending a wave of horror through the watching crowd. A man listening to the stream jolts as a scream erupts from his phone, surprising him with its intensity and realism. He furrows his brow, wondering why the video looks so disturbingly real. Walking through the bustling public square, he notices others around him also receiving disaster alert text messages about what on earth is happening today. He mutters to himself, feeling a growing sense of unease. This is Lee Ho-young, a 29-year-old man, who feels the weight of life's daily struggles. Making a living is already hard enough, and now they're talking about monsters and whatnot. He questions who would believe in something like that. He sighs, deeply frustrated by the sheer number of faked videos recently as he continues down the street. His eyes widened as he looked down upon something. There before him is a white-skinned goblin with long white hair with a shackle on its leg, breathing heavily as it bleeds from a bear trap. He feels a chill run down his spine seeing the monster. This is kind of scary. He thinks maybe it's best to run for now. He says aloud that today is the day the math teacher is supposed to come. The monster, sensing that our boy was actually going to just run away, started to call out to him by growling, but then surprisingly looked at him with pleading eyes, as though it was a female-led character. But a feeling of a mix of disgust and confusion causes our boy to shake as he looks at the goblin. He can't help but think that it was asking him to help it. Despite the monster's attempts to act cute and ask for help, it's still too freaking ugly for him to help. Ho-young reminds himself firmly that he's a human and that's a monster, but those tear-filled puppy eyes make him hesitate. He wrestles with his thoughts, admitting he isn't someone who can easily show compassion to a monster. Thinking hard and practically, he decides he can't help it no matter how pitiful it looks. But just as he's about to walk away, the monster reveals a small photograph of its family, showing 2 other goblin parents hugging her. All of them doing the same peace sign as the photo is being taken. The goblin wipes its tears with a handkerchief, silently pleading for help. After seeing this new sight of the goblin, Ho-young was engulfed by a bright golden light as he was shocked by this sudden Uno reverse card attack from the goblin herself. After some time, he finds himself holding a small pouch in his hands with a small golden ball glistens under the light. As he examines it, a system dashboard appears in front of him displaying the words Silver Goblin Pill. The description trails off, telling him that once consumed one will obtain something that was covered in question marks. He recalls helping the goblin, a creature he never thought he did, yet here he is holding a gift from it. The pouch in his hands feels unreal, almost like a dream. Curious as he reaches out to the dashboard and wonders what this silver goblin pill is. His finger passes through, prompting him to wonder if this something like a hologram. He thinks to himself, who would eat something so suspicious? But his contemplation is abruptly interrupted by the voice of a news anchor on the TV. The anchor reports that unknown large buildings have appeared all over the world. The screen shows these ominous towers, and the anchor continues saying that contact has been lost with the army that went into the tower. The appearance of unknown monsters. These strange towers. Could the apocalypse really be starting? The thought sends a chill down his body. He stands up, eyes fixed on the TV, his mind racing with possibilities. Suddenly a deafening blast shakes the ground, the shock wave rattling the windows. Panic grips him as he stares wide-eyed at the window. Chaos erupts everywhere. People frantically run and stare in shock at the destruction caused by the tower. TV channels broadcast urgent news about the scene, announcing to everyone that in Korea was a particularly alarming, massive tower that had appeared out of nowhere amidst the chaos. Ho Young stands with his eyes fixed on the tower. He clenches his fist, glancing at the status window in front of him, which repeats the same ominous message about the silver goblin pill. He didn't know if what he was about to do was the correct choice, but he knew he had to act when he swallowed the pill. His mind raced with the thought that this time, it might be the only chance to do something as crazy as this. As the pill enters his body, a strange sensation washes over him. His eyeballs start to dart fiercely as it changes to a blue color, and he notices a status window popping up announcing that he has obtained Sage's status window. This new status window promises to provide the highest rate of survival in his current situation. A blue light appears before him, and from it, a book materializes, landing in his hands. He opens it and a blinding flash envelops him. The book merges into another status window titled Guide, giving an alarming declaration that the door to the end of the world is opening soon, with 15 days 4 hours 12 minutes and 52 seconds remaining until doomsday. A window advises him to prepare by engaging in strength exercises. The urgency of the situation presses down on him, but he follows these instructions in the hope of surviving what is to come by giving up on everything else for 15 days to focus on just exercising. Now in the present, he stares at the status window before him, which reads the door of the end has opened, and he's in the middle of a forest. He wonders if this might be the end. Looking around his surroundings, he felt that they differed from what he imagined. Glancing back at the sword behind him, the status window labels it a blunt sword, and he wonders if it really is one of the status window responds by indicating that the game starts now and the tutorial is beginning. Multiple windows come up showing that the aptitude test has been completed, and based on data analysis he has been assigned the most suitable class called Combat Swordsman. Shocked by the sudden information, Ho Young questions what this means. Another window appears instructing him to open the status window for more details. He started to be overwhelmed by the huge amount of information as he found too many things to read. Examining his profile reveals the key details he needed to know. His current class is a combat swordsman at level 1 with skills in basic swordsmanship and access to Sage's status window. His stats show HP at full and MP at 10, with 4 other stats outlined with no remaining points to allocate swinging his sword. He reflects on whether being a combat swordsman means things are really starting now to clear. Looking at the current challenge, he must survive in the forest for 1 hour or find an exit hidden somewhere within the forest and escape. As indicated by another status window, he thinks that if this is the tutorial, it should give him some time to get used to the game before it starts. A status window catches his eye, stating that Sage's status window will provide the guide with the highest rate of survival in his current situation. Another window for the guide advises Ho Young to use all 60 minutes of the tutorial to kill as many monsters as possible, suggesting that the second objective would hinder his growth and is not recommended. He realizes that he can use it here too, guessing that the Sage's status window knew this situation would occur, which was why it told him to exercise and practice kendo. As he starts moving, he recalls the guide's advice to hunt the monsters and concludes that it is best not to run away from the forest. Just as the system announces that the tutorial will start now, rustling in the bushes reveals a small animal-like monster with a huge horn on its head. Seeing a red status window labeling it as a one-horned raccoon, he thinks it is cuter than he imagined. But then the raccoon growls, turning into a horror show monster, and leaps to attack. But with sharp reflexes and basic swordsmanship, Ho Young slashes it away. He gains experience points by killing the monster. Looking at how it died from a single hit from basic swordsmanship, he felt that it was pretty weak, which made sense since it was a tutorial monster. He calculates that basic swordsmanship consumes 2 megapixels per use, and with a total of 10 megapixels he can utilize it 5 times before exhausting his MP. Which meant that he needed to preserve his MP while hunting. He continued slicing through, only thinking of basic swordsmanship, and with a final blow he killed the last one. Multiple status windows appear showing he has gained experience points, leveled up to 2 recovered HP and MP, and earned points to increase his stats. He now has 2 remaining points. Relieved, he notes the nice timing of his level up as his mana is about to be depleted, but his happiness is interrupted as new status windows replace the old ones. One window explains the weight of knowledge, stating that having the Sage's status window means he will level up slower compared to other players. Our boy was shocked as he learned there is a penalty for having Sage's status window. Frustrated, he grits his teeth, unable to believe the level he gained was taken away. He wonders when he will be able to level up again, cursing the ridiculous handicap calling the status window again. He examines his stats once again. But then he noticed something that was weird. He still had the 2 points he could use to allocate to his stats. Thinking about the possibilities, Ho Young slowly realizes that what he has isn't a penalty, but an overpowered bug-like ability. Swinging his sword, fiercely slicing through the raccoons with a ferocity that leaves no room for error. Ho Young's eyes lock onto the status windows that appear before him as a rush of excitement floods him as they announce that he has gained experience points and has now reached level 2. However, just as quickly as the windows appear they vanish into thin air, leading him to staring at his stats. He has fallen back to level 1 just as he anticipated, yet he sees that his remaining points are steadily increasing to 4 points now. He thinks to himself that the more he levels up, the more experience points he will need for the next level. This thought ignites a spark of strategy in his mind. It might be easier to raise his stats directly than to go through the grind of leveling up in the usual way. Thinking about it deeply, he contemplates his next move as he knows he must act wisely. His gaze shifts to his 4 choices, which were stamina, strength, agility and sensitivity. He narrows down his choices with a determined look in his eyes. Strength and agility would be the best for a combat swordsman, as strength would enable him to deliver more powerful attacks while agility would enhance his speed and reflexes, making him a formidable opponent. But after deliberating for some time, he selected sensitivity as the stat to increase for now, as he felt that this was what he needed the most right now. A new status window appears, confirming Ho Young's choice of increasing his sensitivity by 4 points. After a while, he relentlessly slaughters the one-horned raccoons and marvels at how weak they seem as tutorial monsters given how easily he defeats them with the default stats he had at the beginning. Glancing at his status window, he sees the instruction to utilize the entire 60-minute tutorial to kill as many monsters as possible. As he surveys his surroundings, he realizes the real challenge is finding enough raccoons within the time limit. Noticing his sensitivity stat was leveled to 20, a sense of triumph washes over him as finding the raccoons has become much easier with his enhanced sensitivity. Feeling his newfound abilities, he's almost giddy with excitement, thinking he can now sense a kind of chi. But his happiness fades as dark energy looms behind him, accompanied by a notification stating he has defeated all monsters and a hidden quest is activated. A fierce roar pierces the air as a giant monster with a bright red aura emerges, and the status window commands him to defeat the level 2 one-horned raccoon alpha. Staring at the new beast, Ho Young wonders what the hell it was. Fear creeps into his mind as the raccoon alpha tightens its claws and leaps towards him with immense strength and speed. Instinctively, our boy jumps back, narrowly avoiding the attack and tumbling far away from the new boss monster. Panting hard as he tries to catch his breath, Ho Young grapples with the realization that it's incredibly fast and that this monster is the boss. The alpha stomps its feet into the ground while Ho Young struggles to steady his nerves, as this creature was unlike the others he had faced before. The alpha raccoon charges again, but with a determined glare. Our boy swings his sword, slicing through it. Relief floods him as he thinks it's doable. The status window confirms his victory. He has defeated the boss, cleared the hidden quest and earned gold. Catching his breath, he gazes at the alpha's dead body, feeling a swell of pride knowing that he was actually now level 7. The window reappears stating he has completed the tutorial. He hadn't expected the hour to stretch so long, but now it's over. But it isn't over yet, as Ho Young suddenly finds himself in a different place, surrounded by a crowd of people. Confusion sets in as he thinks about where he was right now, but then a speaker crackles to life, welcoming everyone and announcing their successful completion of the tutorial. The crowd listens intently as the voice continues, explaining that they are in the lobby of the tower, specifically the C-267 region. Ho Young's mind races as he looks around. He counts 14 men and 11 women, wondering if all of them finished the tutorial too. A woman behind him murmurs about being in a different place again, while a man demands to be sent home, observing the chaos and people crying for their mothers and insisting it's all a dream. Our boy understands their panic as the entire world had just changed in a single day. Had he not known the end was near, he probably would panic like them too, but he steels himself, clenching his fist. He reminds himself that he must stay calm and survive. A woman's voice breaks through, asking where they are. A mysterious voice responds, telling her that they are in the Tower of the End. The woman looks down and sees a rabbit-like creature dressed in a suit. A level 55 player called Kum Kum. The creature introduces itself as the cutie of the tower and the lower floor manager Kum Kum. Disbelief spreads as a man questions if Kum Kum was just a kid in a rabbit suit, while another wonders if it brought them here. Kum Kum observes their reactions, thinking, "This is normal." Ho Young stepped forward, asking Kum Kum about what they're supposed to do if this is really the end of the world. Pointing a finger at our boy, Kum Kum responds that what Ho Young said was a great question. The manager, with a sinister chuckle, reveals that all 22 players will now participate in a game with their lives at stake, hearing that the crowd is thrown into chaos. Panicking as well, Ho Young fought to maintain his composure as Kum Kum reveals that all the humans of Earth were now in the tower right now, and that they needed to work together for each mission on each floor to climb the tower. Ho Young continues to question him if they can return to their normal lives upon reaching the tower's top. Kum Kum, with a mischievous wink, admits that it doesn't know. Annoyed by that reply, Ho Young presses on, questioning the point of climbing the tower, but Kum Kum turns his back cryptically, stating that some things don't need meaning and that only death awaits those who don't climb. Silence fell over the crowd as Kum Kum mentions that many people have already perished in the tutorial. Shock gets Ho Young hard as he hadn't considered this fact, as it was just the tutorial, but many people likely couldn't survive it. Faces of people he knew flash before his eyes as he remembers them, and despair grips him. Kum Kum then asks if anyone here was willing to kill him. He promises a special reward for the one that helps him, as he needed to die in order to get home. But Ho Young's mind races, thinking that this was a trap despite Kum Kum's harmless appearance. He was still a level 55, something that he couldn't beat right now, so he decided to stand back and watch for now. A status window appears suddenly, advising him to help Kum Kum get home. Conflicted, Ho Young questions whether attacking the rabbit was a wise choice as sweat drips down his hand. He thinks that it wouldn't hurt to listen to the guide since it had helped him so far, but questions whether he should do something this crazy. But just as he was deciding, a man steps forward, volunteering to kill Kum Kum, saying if he wants to die so badly then he should kill it. Hearing him, Ho Young gets upset now that he was too late. The man prepares for the attack, vowing to make it as painful as possible. He charges at the rabbit, who was standing still, waiting for the strike, but then the man's face was met with a rather powerful punch, sending him flying towards the crowd as Kum Kum calls him weak. Only a path of blood could be seen going past everyone before a huge splatter of blood appears on the wall behind them. Stunned at the sudden transformation of Kum Kum and the tragic end of the man, Kum Kum sarcastically apologizes for counter-attacking. Panic spreads with people screaming and fleeing, shouting about the man's death. Ho Young was rooted in place, consumed with fear, knowing that it could have been him if he had volunteered first. Kum Kum reverted to his original form and tried to calm everyone down, laughing off the incident as a mistake and asking if there were any more volunteers. Even after what happened, the guide was still asking Ho Young to help the lower floor manager Kum Kum get home. Kum Kum, with a crazy smile on his face, asks if anyone wants to help him get an early mark. The room falls into an eerie silence as everyone tries to process what just happened. Ho Young's mind starts racing as he begins to suspect that the guide lied to him, making him wonder why it would deceive him. Suddenly his eyes lock onto Sage's status window that has been triggered. Intrigued, he examines the options. Sage's eye enables him to look at the status window of other people. Guide, which is used through Sage's status window. The guide will be sent to him at times. However, because of these skills, Ho Young will level up slower compared to other players. But the sight of the new skill, Sage's eyes, catches his attention as he couldn't believe that there was another skill besides guide. But he wonders why it was activating right now all of a sudden. As he ponders the significance of the Sage's eye he just discovered, he glances at Kum Kum while choosing the Sage's eye. A grin spreads across his face, thinking he finally understands the situation. Kum Kum, acting cute and innocent, tells everyone that he wants to go home. Ho Young raises his hand, volunteering to help, as a surge of confidence runs through him as he thinks the guide wasn't lying. After all, Kum Kum loudly calls out Ho Young's name and level, prompting him to confidently declare that his level isn't important when he's doing a good deed. Kum Kum, with a fierce look, agrees and urges him to send it home quickly. A woman from earlier interrupts, reminding Ho Young of the danger they just witnessed. Others join in, urging him not to do anything reckless, but he confidently tells everyone that it's okay and that he has a plan, leaving the woman speechless and the crowd uncertain. Facing Kun Kun, he confidently declares they'll witness something exciting, gripping his sword tightly. The air gets thick with anticipation. Kun Kun, now excited and eager, transforms into his monster form and readies a punch towards our boy, who stands still despite seeing the attack coming towards him. His eyes locked on the rabbit's fist, approaching with deadly speed just as he remembers that there was something strange about what Kun Kun said earlier. A flashback is seen where he announces that 24 players will play a game with their lives on the line. But Ho Young was sure that there were 25 people here instead. Piecing the clues together, he suspects the emission of the 55th level monster was a deliberate psychological tactic to induce fear as the punch finally reaches his face. The crowd could only scream in horror as they witnessed Ho Young's head being blown off into pieces. But even with his head gone, he was still holding firmly onto his sword, as a bright red line appeared across Kun Kun's body. It turns out that he had avoided the punch and counterattacks, revealing with Sage's eye that there are only 24 people here to begin with. A status window pops up in front of the dead man's body, revealing a human hologram. Created by Kun Kun, who compliments Ho Young for being pretty good while showing his profile as every stat he had was 0 but still at level 55, noting that this was not his true form but just a hologram that disappears when damaged. As he finally starts to disappear, Kun Kun leaves them with his last few words: "For those who have courage, may the odds be ever in your favor." Just like in Hunger Games. This sudden reveal stuns everyone as Kun Kun then vanishes completely, leaving behind a small blue-green ball that gives a player 1 additional stat point. The crowd buzzes with confusion and curiosity over the hologram, which is fake. They murmur over what happened as a man approaches Ho Young, asking him how he knew. He explains that he saw blood pass through Chai Yi's soul. Her face and clothes should be covered in blood due to the proximity. Yi's soul looks at herself, her eyes widening in realization. Ho Young concludes by saying he thought it was all a show and thinks it's better to make up an excuse rather than reveal his real skills. Suddenly a red-haired man steps forward, his expression smug. He claims it's a waste for Ho Young to have the ball with the additional stat, insisting he just got lucky. Kim Se-young, a level 4 player, asserts he would have stepped up if he had noticed the same thing. Ho Young questions why it would be a waste for him to take it. Se-young responds with arrogance, saying that being still level 1 means he's either weak or a coward who ran away during the tutorial. He suggests Ho Young give up the ball for the sake of mankind and that this was the only chance he was giving him. Gripping the ball tightly, Ho Young wonders if the douchebag in front of him was being serious. Thinking about Se-young's arrogance, our boy decides to break the ball in his face and declares that yielding isn't his hobby, earning himself a stat point. Leaving Se-young furious with anger as he accuses Ho Young of being greedy and trying to save face because of his level of trying to keep calm, our boy thinks from experience that the wisest thing to do is to avoid people like him, yet he wonders how long he can maintain this approach. An announcement interrupts them, stating that their starting gold will be distributed. It explains that gold can be used in the shop with additional gold based on monsters hunted in the tutorial. Se-young sneers at Ho Young, telling him to consider himself lucky. The announcement continues, revealing the highest starting gold as 7,400. Shock waves of astonishment ripple through the crowd. Se-young curses receiving only 1,300 gold, while level 4 Kim Jun Seon receives 1,500. Jealous of the top player, Ho Young holding 7,400 gold. He recalls the grueling effort it took to kill raccoons, recognizing himself as the top player but choosing to keep it a secret to avoid drawing more jealousy, as one guy was already jealous of him over 1 stat point. A window pops up showing the shop opening. Ho Young thinks about the 3 main uses for gold: buying items, leveling up skills, or increasing stats. He methodically spends gold to raise his strength, stamina, and agility, leaving all stats at 20 with 4,600 gold remaining. Nearby Se-young was angry as heck, shouting out loud about how expensive it was for him in terms of leveling up skills. Drawing Ho Young's attention, he decides to level up basic swordsmanship with 1,500 gold and purchases new clothes to replace his worn gym uniform. He then turns to one side after hearing someone calling his name and turns to see level 3 Yi Seol asking for advice. He's puzzled as to why she seeks advice from a level 1 player. She smiles warmly, expressing admiration for his bravery. He then takes a peek at her profile, noting her low stats and low amount of gold, but he also finds out that she was a class healer with level 1 healing hand skill. To check her honesty, he asks how much gold she has and she honestly replies 800. Curious, he asks if she enjoys exercising. She admits she doesn't mind walking, prompting him to guess that her stamina stat is probably low. He suggests she invest in stamina, even telling her that she couldn't use items for long despite the gold she had spent on them. After hearing his advice, she gratefully agrees, thanking him for his advice. In the meantime, an announcement declares the first floor mission will commence soon, instructing them to form 3-man parties and warning that incomplete parties will be filled randomly. They were provided with only 30 minutes to do so. Panic spreads through the crowd. Ho Young anticipated that there would be group missions but is surprised at the early timing. Jun Seong suggests that they reveal their classes since they could already see each other's level in order for them to form better team formation, and the players start doing so to form the parties of their choice. Yi Sol requests Ho Young to team up and he agrees, since he had no reason to refuse a healer. However, other players avoided his party, citing excuses. Despite having a healer, a level 1 combat swordsman isn't appealing as compared to level 4 players who were very relaxed since everyone wanted to be in the same parties as them. Ho Young started to look worried as he saw the remaining players. The announcement suddenly declares that time is up and incomplete parties will be filled randomly. As the first mission commences, they are transported to a dense forest. Ho Young and Yi Sol find themselves with So Young, who curses his bad luck loudly. Facing Se Young's glare, Ho Young couldn't believe that this man with such an ugly face was less popular than him despite being level 4. But then he wonders if teaming up would actually be possible with such a player. Pushing those thoughts aside, Ho Young was determined. Since it came down to this, he needed to make it possible. After all, with a determined look on his face, our boy knew what needed to be done in order to survive here. The status window pops up, displaying the mission to annihilate the Kobold tribe within a 12-hour time limit. From their vantage point behind the trees, the three of them look down at the tribe's area. Se Young, with a confident smirk, informs Ho Young that he'll handle wiping out the tribe and orders him not to get in his way. Ho Young reminds him that this is a team mission, but this only makes Se Young angry as he lashes out, calling Ho Young a loser and accusing him of riding on his coattails. Questioning why he has so much to say, Ho Young, seeing that there is no other way, decides it's best to listen for now and to ride Se Young's coattail to see how good he really is. As they start walking, Se Young continues to berate him, mentioning that he'll only get his act together when someone is about to kill him. Ho Young sarcastically thanks him for his concern, his patience wearing thin. Meanwhile, Yi Sol silently follows them, her face filled with concern, wondering if this party will be alright. With so many bugs lurking around, Se Young shouts in anger, wondering why there are so many. Looking at his attitude, Ho Young thinks they really need to complete this mission without any trouble. Glancing around, he agrees that there are indeed a lot of bugs since they are in the mountains. He notices some purple fruits on the trees but gets interrupted by Yi Sol, who asks him if the kobold monster must be strong. He answers that there is a chance it is stronger than a one-horned raccoon, but since they are still level 1, it should be manageable. He points out that they should still be on guard. After all, this is the Tower of the End. Listening to his thoughts, she nods in understanding. As they walk, a monstrous creature with big claws, a muscular body, and powerful legs appears in front of them while holding a club. Ho Young stares at the giant level 5 kobold, his heart pounding with panic as he compares it to the one-horned raccoons they've encountered before, forcing them to hide. Yi Sol anxiously asks him what they should do, pointing out the monster's obvious strength. He agrees and suggests they should check their surroundings for more kobolds. But then Se Young steps forward confidently, accusing them of hiding like cowards. They watch in shock as he leaps to fight the kobold, landing right in front of it and punching it straight in its face without hesitation, declaring to Ho Young that hiding was the reason why he was only at level 1. Both of them stare in disbelief as Se Young grins like a maniac, continuing to attack the kobold, who manages to withstand his punch with its skull. Seeing this, Se Young continues to punch, taunting it to hold out against his attacks. Ho Young is amazed and shocked by Se Young's craziness, boldness, and stubbornness. Yi Sol also joins the fight, offering her healing powers to assist him. Ho Young looks around and is relieved that there are no other kobolds around. Observing Se Young fighting, he checks his strength and sees that there are 24 points in it and the kobold's health point at 92%, which is slowly decreasing with every punch. He acknowledges that Se Young is living up to his level. With Yi Sol's help, he might even defeat the kobold alone. However, he wonders why the damage dealt is so low compared to Se Young's strength, considering if there is another weakness. Suddenly, a status window appears, relaying the guide explaining that kobolds are passive monsters and will not attack unless provoked. Realizing this, Ho Young thinks that Se-young has unnecessarily stirred up trouble, but he decides to stay positive, dismissing his thoughts, and concludes that they need to capture a few kobolds for research purposes anyway. As he slides down the status window, his eyes widen in surprise at what he sees. Se-young, with his level 1 stone fist skill triggered, relentlessly attacks the kobold, shouting for it to die. However, the kobold dodges, and his fist hits a tree, which breaks and falls on another kobold. The second kobold turns around with a pissed-off look on its face, revealing that it is at level 6, and glares at him as its head hits the tree. Momentarily scared, Se-young sees both kobolds rushing towards him. He curses under his breath, thinking he's in big trouble and wondering why Ho Young isn't helping him. As he blocks the incoming attacks, he starts looking for him. But then he finds no one where Ho Young was hiding and calls him a loser, wondering if he ran away. The kobolds roar loudly, ready to attack Se-young with its club this time, but Yi-Sol attacks one of them from behind, warning him of the danger. However, she trips over a rock, falls, and hits her head. As she tries to regain her composure, she finds a dark shadow cast over her. The kobold is preparing to strike her. Suddenly, a fruit appears behind it at a fast speed. A sword appears, piercing the fruit, and Ho Young, with his level 1 basic swordsmanship, steps in. The fruit's pulp falls onto his sword as he cuts the kobold's body, paralyzing and killing it with a loud groan, before it explodes completely. A status window pops up, indicating he has eliminated the level 6 kobold. Se-young is shocked by what happened and calls him a loser, while Yi-Sol looks at him with teary eyes, relieved. After killing the kobold, Ho Young recalls seeing the bugs eating all the other fruits but avoiding the one he threw at the kobold. Sensing that something was off according to the guide's information, he summoned a poison apple from his inventory. The guide had told him that kobolds were vulnerable to poison and advised him to gather poison from the mountains. Now holding the poison apple in his hand, he smiles, thinking it's the key to the level 1. Meanwhile, Se-young, gritting his teeth after using so much of his time fighting a level 5 kobold, watches as Ho Young helps Yi-Sol to her feet, asking if she's okay. She thanks him, and he remarks that he didn't expect another kobold to be drawn in by the aggro, knowing that it would have been dangerous if he had been a bit late. She acknowledges this, thanking him for his timely help, and he replies that he's relieved. When she asks where he went, he tries to answer but is interrupted by Se-young, who calls him a loser. He accuses Ho Young of being a free rider, hiding when it was dangerous, and only coming in to swoop in and steal the final hit. He continues to curse at Ho Young, calling him an unethical bastard and recalling how he gulped down the stat points earlier. Ho Young looks at him speechlessly, wondering what he's ranting about as Se-young walks away, grumbling about being the bigger person since his level is higher. Ho Young starts to think he's a lunatic, but then he sighs, realizing that Se-young's inability to read the room will make things even harder. As the sun sets, they arrive at the kobold tribe. Se-young sees himself as a national hero in the punching scene and fights fiercely, sure that these lowly monsters can never stop him. But then one of the kobolds manages to return a hit to his face, while the others were easily killing them one by one. Seeing this, he punches the kobold furiously, eliminating them one after another. Meanwhile, Yi-Sol and Ho Young also take down kobolds, though their efforts seem insignificant compared to Se-young's furious assault. Watching them, he curses inwardly, wondering how they are doing it so easily. Suddenly, a kobold lands a punch straight on his head, and more of them appear all around and start to beat him until it hurts. In pain, he begs desperately for someone to save him. The beating stops abruptly as the kobolds appear with purple lines drawn across their bodies, causing them to burst apart, revealing Ho Young standing before him with his sword. Smiling, he tells Se-young that he took over the fight in his place for a bit and asks how the ride was. Se-young, with tears in his eyes, shouts out to him as Big Brother. Both Ho Young and Yi-Sol are shocked by his sudden change in attitude. At that moment, a status window pops up, indicating that they have cleared the mission. 3 of them return to the lobby, the weight of their experiences hanging heavily in the air. Se-young with an embarrassed look recalls what he had done. He remembers prostrating himself before Ho Young told him he would serve him and even called some level 2 newbie sir. As the trio levels up, Yi-Sol congratulates Ho Young, who thanks her with a humble smile. Se-young was trying to suppress his anger, thinking that the only one he wanted to serve was his boss. He grits his teeth at the thought that it's over for him if this gets out, but as a man he cannot go back on his words. Glancing at him, Ho Young wonders if Se-young needs to go to the toilet to poop or something. While Yi-Sol looks around and guesses that nobody's there yet, which makes her wonder if they were the first ones back. Ho Young replies that it looks like they cleared the mission faster than the others because they were lucky and managed to find the kobold's weakness. Se-yeon was processing the fact that they were in first place. Yi-sol shouts that it wasn't just luck, it was all thanks to Ho Young's observational skills, as she could have never thought of using poison. Ho Young laughs off her compliment, saying if it weren't for her support it would have been much harder, but secretly he feels like a fraud. In the meantime, other parties also start arriving and Ho Young notices Jun Seong and Jun Ho's party. He figures that they must have found the poisonous apples too, but he wonders if the other parties will make it back fine. Everyone's attention gets diverted when someone shouts that another party has come back, but as they look only 2 members are seen saying they made it. Yi-sol asks them about the third person and the girl starts crying, saying it's just the 2 of them, as she recalls her team member being killed by one of the kobolds. An announcement grabs their attention stating that the first level mission has been completed by all parties and repeating the same words again and again. Yi-sol shouts for them to wait because someone hasn't come back yet, but the notification continues saying that a total of 6 parties have returned alive and 8 players have failed to return. Ho Young expected it to be hard for everyone to make it back alive but couldn't believe that 8 of them had already died. He imagines endless skulls around him and the tower, wondering how many more will die before they make it to the top. The announcement states that they were beginning calculations for the level 1 mission with the parties who made it back alive as one whole team, and the party that cleared the first level first will receive 1,000 gold. Each looking at their status windows, Se-yeon and Yi-sol were happily saying that they were the first ones. Ho Young looks at his profile thinking he got 2,000 gold for both bonuses, which is a bit lacking compared to the tutorial, but gold was a kind of insurance for his future survival. He knew he needed to save as much as he could. He then hears someone asking which party got first. Seeing people staring at him, he realizes he'll have to reveal it this time, as the party that returns the second already knows. He raises his hand and is about to tell everyone when Se-yeon proudly shouts it is them, calling everyone else as weak, and that is an obvious result. Ho Young looks at him, seeing him all proud and bragging. A man tries to confirm if his party was first. Se-yeon responds with a challenging look and asks him what's with that reaction, is he mad that they got first? The man says that's not what he meant. Ho Young glances at Se-yeon and guesses he forgot about the fact that he was beaten up by those kobolds, but thanks to him it lessens the attention on him for a bit, but his thoughts get interrupted by the crowd's comments, with a woman mocking him saying that he got a first place but his level is only 2. A man adds that he got 2,000 gold from doing nothing. Another woman says he got carried, and a man asks if he doesn't feel bad at all. Hearing their badmouthing, he thinks he guesses he wasn't right about the tension getting any less. Yi-sol tries to defend Ho Young by taking his side but gets stopped by him as he tells her it's all right, they're not going to listen anyway. She insists, but Ho Young states he'll have to show them instead. Jun Seong claps his hands to get everyone's attention and tells them to calm down, saying they need to focus on his profile shows he is a level 8 class archer, one of the highest level players in the region. Another level 8 player, Jun Ho, agrees with him, adding they should cheer up and keep pushing on for the sake of the people who passed away. His profile also shows up stating that he is a combat swordsman and one of the highest level players in the region. Then more shouts come from the crowd stating they shouldn't be depressed or upset and need to get it together so they can do this. But as they were cheering one another on, the blue flame and the torch faded and were replaced by a bright red flame accompanied by a warning and an announcement, which caused people to panic, asking what was happening and why the flames changed color. The notification revealed that the survival rate for the first level of Region C-2567 is below average and a penalty mission will be implemented. When someone asked about the penalty mission, the announcement explained that a death mission will begin soon, requiring them to choose a candidate in their minds. The player with the most votes will carry out the death mission. With a 5-minute timer, panic spreads among them and a woman asks if they are going to die if they get picked for this, as it is revealed that if they do not choose anyone they'll automatically vote for themselves. At that moment people realize that being voted here means the end for them. The clock starts ticking and death weighs on their minds. As time passes they gaze at each other, realizing they must choose someone in this critical moment. Yi-sol shouts that if everyone votes for themselves no one will have to do the death mission. Someone agrees with her, but another player argues that it might be possible that all of them will have to do it. Yi-sol gets speechless at this point and someone shouts that this isn't the time to be arguing as the clock is still ticking with over 1 minute remaining. A player then points to Ho Young whose name had something above it. It turns out that Jun Ho had voted for him. Yi-sol calls out to him in pity and someone asks if this is too cruel. Another one shouts that no one said that it's not anonymous. Jun Ho apologizes to Ho Young, mentioning that they do need to choose someone. Ho Young, with a painful expression on his face, says he did expect it given the atmosphere, but he's a bit taken back. After all, he doesn't want to die. Yi Sol tries to convince them that it's not too late if everyone votes for themselves and Ho Young votes for Jun Ho. However, he cuts her off saying it won't work. He explains that the other player had a point. They didn't know if that strategy would be effective and that the trust among them was already broken. As voting continued, the names kept appearing on Ho Young's name tag as people decided on who to rule out. Seeing the names on his head increasing one by one, he knows that the biggest reason is that he's low level. They have lost the notion in society that the strong should protect the weak. Yi Sol shouts that they're too cruel. How can they do this to someone? A man shouts back asking what they are supposed to do. He's going to die if he doesn't vote, so he hasn't done anything wrong. Another woman adds that she's sure he would have died anyway given his level, and that's how masks fell and people revealed their true selves with only 1 second remaining. Se-yeon also votes for Ho Young, mockingly expressing sorry to him. It was a cruel reminder that the world of the end really is here. The window declares that all votes have been cast and the portal to the death mission is opening. As the portal opens, the only one standing in front of the deadly red portal was our boy. Everyone looks on, questioning if this is real. Yi Sol, with tears in her eyes and her mouth covered, calls for Ho Young while Se-yeon is laughing to himself, realizing that with Ho Young gone his problem is solved, and calls himself a genius. Ho Young considers himself as the sacrificial lamb with the altar set up, and with faces of guilt and relief behind him, he has no choice but to climb. The Calvary, however, at the top isn't death but a delightful treat, as it turns out that with the guide, what awaits him isn't death, but a really awesome reward. As the candidates waited anxiously, someone approached Se-yeon and Yi Sol to check on them. It's Jun Seong, who remarks that even though their time together was brief, they've been companions looking out for each other, and it's sad to part ways like this. Se-yeon, with a hint of bitterness, responds that it's not sad, people get what they deserve. Puzzled, Jun Seong questions what he means by that. Se-yeon retorts that it's obvious if they look at Ho Young's level that all he did was try to benefit from him while he carried the group with teary eyes. Yi Sol asks Se-yeon what he's trying to say, reminding him that Ho Young's abilities got them through the mission. In anger, he dismisses Ho Young's abilities, saying he just got lucky with his scheming and took the final blow when the enemy was already down. Yi Sol asks if he's sure Ho Young didn't save him from almost dying. Knowing that it was true, Se-yeon falls silent while his anger builds inside him, recalling Ho Young killing the kobolds one after the other from earlier. He starts to doubt whether Ho Young has a skill that changes the level he shows. This makes him think that Ho Young might make it back alive. Jun Seong, trying to calm the tensions, says he hopes Ho Young is as good as Yi Sol makes him out to be, because that way he'll at least have a slight chance of making it back. Hearing those words, she recalls Ho Young's confident promise to show his abilities. She wipes her tears and firmly says she believes he will return safely. She's sure of it. Jun Seong smiles, agreeing with her and expressing his belief that Ho Young will come back. Meanwhile, standing in the eerie kobold tribe with birds flying around, Ho Young notices that these are the same kobolds from their first mission. Compared to before, the atmosphere feels creepy, but glancing at the status window of the guide, he feels reassured, admitting he was considering voting for himself if things went south. He now feels things are going his way. Recalling Se-yeon's ugly face, he clenches his fist, determined to deliver the final blow through the voting, though it was already decided. Suddenly, a status window announces the return of the kobold tribe's hunting group, which appears right behind him. And he sees the glaring kobolds arriving, with one huge red dude behind the smaller ones with a completely pissed off face giving off a deadly aura. The notification alerts him that the death mission will begin, instructing him to kill the chieftain and the hunting group that are enraged by the death of their tribesman. The level 12 kobold chieftain grows menacingly and they charge at Ho Young. Facing a boss monster on a death mission, he feels a surge of adrenaline. The guide's status window indicates the kobold chieftain is the dungeon's boss and, like other kobolds, is weak to poison. Wasting no time at all, Ho Young finds the poisoned apple and drips poison apple pulp on his sword, considering that a level 12 boss monster along with others is nearly an impossible opponent for anyone else. The kobold roars and swings its spear at him, but Ho Young dodges, letting it hit the ground. Strikes the kobold with his level 2 basic swordsmanship. Confident that this time will be different, he kills all the side characters with a sigh of relief. He thinks only the chieftain remains, holding onto 2 blades. Our boy shouts at the boss monster, ready for the final showdown. He swings his sword at the chieftain, who deftly avoids it by pulling back to minimize the impact, impressed by the monster's skill. He acknowledges it as a true death mission boss, but the chieftain turns around and starts running in the middle of their fight, leaving Ho Young with a stunned expression on his face. So he chases after it, frustrated, wondering how it can call itself a boss monster. As he attacks from behind, the chieftain's HP decreases. He believes that the fight will soon be over. This made him wonder if this stage was meant to be easily cleared as a bonus stage. Launching his attack, he's suddenly surprised when his sword doesn't penetrate the chieftain's body. He notices a bright red full moon in the sky and the chieftain's eyes flashing red. It attacks, injuring Hun's right shoulder and causing blood to spill out as he couldn't react in time to the chieftain's sudden attack. Back at base, Seon comments that they can't do anything about someone who's already dead and declares that he will carry the team for the rest of the floors. Yi-Sol prays for Ho-young, prompting Se-yeon to ask if they understand what death is and criticizing her for praying for someone already dead. Hearing that insult, she scolds him and says that even when the world is in this state, he should have some conscience. Se-yeon laughs, questioning if he said something wrong, but a voice interrupts their bickering, pointing out to the portal. They all look and see Ho-young returning, with the area healing the slash wound across his chest. An announcement declares that the player who participated in the death mission has returned alive. He smiles and confirms "I'm back" as he returns safe and sound. He recalls the guide's warning about the chieftain's increased abilities. When its eyes turn red after getting injured, he notices its red eyes moving backward with his HP decreasing. He leans against a tree trying to stop the bleeding. Seeing the kobold chieftain charging at him with its HP constantly decreasing over time, Ho-young realized that all he needed was one good hit, but how he was going to do it was the problem as the chieftain rushed to attack. He dodges the strong attack, causing the chieftain's sword to punch a hole through the tree. He realizes that while a sword may not be able to cut a wall, a nail can pierce it. During this entire fight, Ho-young had been thinking that a sword was a weapon only for slashing subconsciously. Coming up with a new idea, he sees the chieftain charging towards him once again. This time, he was going to use its momentum as it rushes towards him, combining his new attack with his own weight to it. The chieftain leaps high into the air, striking this time with two of its blades at once. Ho-young, in that moment, focuses everything into a single ball, and unleashes it all into a single point, piercing a hole straight through the chieftain. Seeing how his planned work brought a smile to his face. In the end, he gained a new skill called stabbing, as the system announced that he had cleared the death mission. Back at the safe zone, Yi-Sol didn't waste any time and immediately threw herself towards Ho-young in order to hug him, but before she could reach him, something huge slammed her out of the way, causing her to roll back quite a few times as she finally stops herself with the help of a nearby pillar. But the sudden attack left her all confused and dazed. Even Ho-young was confused by what was happening as someone else managed to hug him first. It turns out to be Se-yeon, who proudly declares that he has faith in his big brother to return back to them safely. Se-yeon laughs heartily, declaring that a lowly death mission could never stop his big brother, the strongest in the universe. Ho-young clenches his fist, holding himself back, wishing he could just beat the crap out of Se-yeon. Another player, Byung-chul, interrupts their reunion, raising an eyebrow as he asks if he really cleared the death mission. He adds that he's glad Ho-young is okay, but if he had cleared the mission, he should have gained a lot of experience points. Yet, they could see that his level was still stuck at 2. The other players start to talk among themselves, noting that he was still level 2 and wondering if it was like the rabbit mod, implying it might be nothing. Hearing their words, Ho-young reflects that he thought he had grown accustomed to it, but the world still insists on keeping the weak in their place. He recalls the time when he was a child and received his academic assessment result. He remembers people whispering behind his back, with a girl saying he topped the midterm, and a boy accusing him of cheating. Questioning how a pathetic orphan could get top marks without going to an academy, he thinks they can't allow a worm to wriggle about, so they want to step on it and crush it. Even after so many years, he's standing here again, surrounded by a mob mocking him. Someone suggests Ho-young might have stayed hidden somewhere, biding his time before coming out like in the tutorial. Another player agrees, saying it makes sense. Because of his level, he must have been hidden in a pit somewhere. Ho-young grips his fist tightly, thinking he already knows prejudiced people don't change their perspectives easily. Right now, what he needs to do is. But then someone interrupts, telling the others not to run their mouths so thoughtlessly. It's Yi-Sol, who appears with a bleeding nose after Se-yeon's body slam against her. Her voice is firm as she asks why the other players keep doubting him. She even points out that he already proved he survived the death mission. Ho-young looks at her while she figures that the other players know nothing about him. Se-yeon also steps forward, agreeing with her and calling Yi-Sol his big sister. He shouts at all the players that not only did they fail to hold a party to commemorate the glorious return of his big bro, but they even dared to ruin the mood. They've lost their minds, haven't they? Ho-young looks at him, thinking he sounds like the craziest one, but smiles, feeling somewhat reassured. He knows that he needs everyone to survive in the tower, and if he wants that, he has to show them something convincing. Ho-young calls out to everyone to get their attention, telling them that he needs to show them something. He appears with a red sword in his hand, a sword named Indomitable Sword, which has a rare rank and an attack power of plus 15%. With wide eyes, another player comments that the sword is basically a cheat key. A woman looks at her sword, noting that no information pops up for her old longsword. Jun Seong tells Ho Young he's impressed he kept the poison apple, noting that, as Yi Sol said, he's truly extraordinary. She feels glad for him, and he modestly says he was just lucky. Jun Seong adds that such a valuable item is more crucial for their survival than gaining a few experience points. Hearing those words about their survival causes our boy's demeanor to shift as he points out that they seem to have forgotten how they nearly drove him to his death. A heavy silence falls as they all become at a loss for words. Even Se-young and Yi Sol are speechless at what he just said. Jun-ho steps forward and admits that Ho Young is right. With his head down in shame, he confesses he justified it by thinking it couldn't be helped, but realizes it was pure selfishness. He continues, saying they knew voting for Ho Young, the one with the lowest level, was like silently targeting him and throwing him into a deadly situation to save themselves. He bows in front of Ho Young, apologizing with tears streaming down his face, saying he's truly glad he came back alive. Ho Young and the others look at him in silence. A woman with a carefree attitude asks why he goes that far, noting that someone had to go anyway, and Ho Young even came back with a rare item, so it's all good, isn't it? Jun-ho shouts at her, asking how she could think that way, addressing her as Eun-jin, and asking if she feels the slightest bit of guilt. Eun-jin counters that it's not for him to say when he voted for Ho Young before anyone else. Hearing this, Ho Young stops Jun-ho from saying more, explaining that the reason he brought it up wasn't to reprimand them but to stop it from happening again. He points out that they must have already caught on during the death mission voting, but the tower is trying to divide them. It's provoking distrust among them, causing conflicts, and probably enjoying sending them on a path to ruin. He believes his return from the death mission is an opportunity because it proves their actions can defy the tower's intentions. Jun Seong asks him if he has a plan for the future. He replies that he'll search for ways for most people to survive and will keep climbing the tower. They'll climb higher and higher, and when they reach the end someday, they'll be able to get their lives back, won't they? The players all agree with what he is saying. Yi Sol shouts that in order to do that, everyone here will have to join hands. Ho Young agrees with her. Jun-ho, with teary eyes and a smiling face, thinks Ho Young is a generous man, and they shouldn't have judged him by something trivial like his level. They then hear a voice saying how unfortunate it is, and Kum enters the safe zone once again, announcing that the next mission is a survival game. Looking at him, someone asks why it's here again. Another player asks if he was giving them stat points this time too. Ho Young feels a slight chill as he asks what the survival mission means. Kum laughs, calling him quick, and explains that the mission for level 2 involves a battle royale among the 15 players present. Everyone looks in pure shock. He winks at everyone to cheer them up, adding that since it's a lower level, it's just a mild taste for them all, so cheer up. He explains the rules of the level 2 mission. There will be 16 players and 16 doppelgangers, making a total of 32 people. To clear the mission, they must kill the doppelgangers. The doppelgangers will have the same stats and memories as the players, making it challenging. The most important rule is number 3, which is that there's no reward for a player killing a doppelganger. But if a player kills another player, they can obtain stat points in gold. In other words, this mission could be an opportunity for them. People start shouting, saying he's basically telling them to kill each other. Kum twists its finger, adding that every 30 minutes without a kill will result in everyone being summoned to the lobby to face a huge disaster. A purple light appears, and people panic, shouting, asking what it is. Looking at a claw coming out of the lightning, someone points it out. Ho Young's legs freeze as he looks at the giant monster coming out from the portal, with an unknown level. Jun-ho shouts for him to get out of the way, but Ho Young is stunned, thinking that Kum expects them to fight that thing. A thunderous explosion erupts, throwing everyone to the ground. Ho Young gazes up at the colossal monster towering before him, thinking, this is truly a disaster. A man nearby trembles, questioning if this nightmare is real, wondering how they are supposed to fight it when they barely made it past the first floor. A woman, her face pale with fear, pleads desperately for help, not wanting to die. Observing the chaos, Ho Young realizes that panic has overtaken everyone. The monster lets out a deepening roar, its massive fist poised to strike a nearby man. Ho Young quickly intervenes, helping the man evade the attack. Grateful, the man thanks him, but Ho Young, still bewildered, wonders why this creature is here when the second floor's mission hasn't even started yet. Kum, with a hint of sarcasm, comments on how terrifying the monster is. Reflecting on Kum's earlier words, Ho Young recalls the warning that if no kill occurs every 30 minutes, everyone would be immediately summoned to the lobby to face a huge disaster. He speculates they might be staging this spectacle to make them take the mission seriously. And if that's the case, then this is merely a preview of the trials ahead, and the monster isn't truly trying to harm them. But that thought quickly disappears as the giant monster's attack sends everyone flying behind him. Jun Seong and Se Yong fight the monster with all their might, shooting arrows and throwing boulders, but it remains unfazed. Jun Seong, frustrated, exclaims that nothing is happening no matter how many arrows he fires, while Kim Se Yong curses in exasperation. Watching their futile efforts, Ho Young grits his teeth, thinking this might not be just for show, and starts to wonder if the monster is genuinely trying to kill them. His attention is drawn to Yi Sol, who, while healing the injured, declares she has no more mana left. Seeing the injured, Ho Young acknowledges that although no one has died yet, that won't remain the case for long. A man shouts a warning as the monster prepares for another attack. Ho Young commands everyone to stand back, understanding there's no time for hesitation. He charges forward, his mind racing non-stop. Jun Ho shouts at him to get away, but Ho Young, lost in determination, knows that if he can't stop the monster, everyone will die. With resolute focus, he considers the synergy between the indomitable sword and his stab skill. Charging at the monster with level 8 basic swordsmanship, he hopes his attack might have an effect. Suddenly, the monster dissipates into the wind, leaving everyone staring in stunned silence. Ho Young, equally shocked, processes the unexpected turn of events. The stunned silence breaks as everyone starts cheering and chanting his name. Ho Young, still holding the sword, marvels at its power, wondering if it's truly that strong. He feels that this experience is unlike anything he has ever encountered. Then, he notices a status window indicating that he will be in an exhausted state for 3 minutes due to overexertion. He exclaims in disbelief and collapses, thinking he is doomed as his name echoes around him. Moments later, Ho Young regains consciousness to find people calling his name. The status window shows that his exhausted state has been lifted. As he pants, he hears Yi Sol and Jun Seong expressing concern, while Jun Ho, with eyes gleaming, admires his humility despite his strength, even finding his fainting at the last moment perfect. Struggling to his feet, Ho Young, feeling lightheaded, asks what happened to the huge disaster. Jun Ho begins to explain, but Kum Kum interjects, revealing that the monster was sent back and that this was just a prelude to make them serious about the mission. Ho Young, with a stunned expression, realizes it was indeed just a test. Kum Kum adds that it wasn't very exciting because everyone was too friendly despite nearly dying. It also brings their attention to the rule that a kill must happen every 30 minutes, which implies that the people beside them might be their killers. A chilling silence envelops the crowd. Kum Kum declares its message delivered and disappears. Gritting his teeth, Ho Young wonders if there's no way to counter this situation. The blue light appears again, and Jun Ho grimly states that if they can't identify the fakes, they will have to kill each other. Another player urges them to find a solution quickly. Someone suggests marking everyone since the fakes share their memories. Another man questions what they should do next. Ho Young draws their attention as he says he has an idea. Yi Sol, intrigued, asks what he has in mind. Ho Young proposes that during the mission, only he will act while everyone else gathers at the highest place on the second floor. If anyone else takes action, they should be considered a fake and dealt with accordingly. A bulky man, level 9 On Se Chong, a former Special Forces member and a specialist in survival, questions the plan. A woman, skeptical of Ho Young's low level, asks why they should follow his plan. Ho Young reminds them of Kum Kum's warning that there is no reward for killing a fake, but a player who kills another player gains stat points in gold. He knew that the instructions were asking them to fight the doppelgangers, but he emphasizes that the tower wants them to kill each other, not the fakes, and he refuses to play by the tower's rules any longer, believing this is the best solution. But the same woman isn't convinced by our boy, but then Jun Seong raises his hand and agrees with the plan, suggesting they could minimize as much damage done to them in this way. He then asks Ho Young if he can identify the fakes. Ho Young grins confidently, thinking that of course, he can. In the forest, the status window indicates the second floor's mission is starting and reminds them that they must kill at least one person within 30 minutes. There are 16 players and 16 fakes. Se Yong, traveling by himself, is annoyed by the risky plan, and hides behind a tree. A voice calls out, noting his size makes him easy to spot. Relieved, Se Yong comes out after recognizing Ho Young and expresses his relief, as he thought his big brother was a fake. But with a swift slash, Ho Young splits Se Young's body in two, ending his life in an instant.
Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.